Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on our very special ACSP ID verification, all things companies house chat this morning. Um, Fantastic to have so many people up. Bit of housekeeping to begin with. We're expecting a lot of questions because this has just come in with Companies House. If you could please keep all of the questions in the Q&A. So it's a separate box down the bottom. General chat, emojis, memes, whatever else, put in the chat box, but keep the Q&As in the Q&A. So we're going to start off today by introducing Robin from MTD Accountants Therapy. So Robin, get us started.
Hi, thanks, Tom, and good morning, everybody. So I am Robin. I am a tax advisor, and so I am completely out of my depth this morning with ACSP, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. And I will be the one asking lots of stupid questions for everybody. So I founded Accountants Therapy. You might also see us as MTD Therapy, as you can see today, as a community back in February. And this community is for accountants, tax advisors, bookkeepers, everybody in between, anybody dealing with the finance sector, and anyone stressed about industry and all the crazy changes that are being thrown our way at the moment. We are a community that's based on WhatsApp primarily, and we get very busy and we've got lots of support there. It's really, really a great space for anybody feeling like they need people to bounce off of, or anybody feeling like they need a bit of a moan about things. And that's exactly why it's called therapy. We're really good at rants about all the difficult things that we're facing. So, as I said, you may see us around as MTD therapy or accountants therapy, and that's because we started life talking about MTD. So, MTD is the biggest part of our space at the moment to understand and hash out all the complexities that we deal with. So, everything from just the general regulations and understanding them a bit more to all the technical details and talking to software providers about how far they are through their API process, for example. So we have lots of collaboration within the group with software vendors and also professional bodies too. So it's an excellent source of information for all things MTD, as it is an excellent place to come and ask all and every question that you have, particularly if you're feeling anxious about MTD, then come and join us, come and see what we're all about. Because really, what we're all about is talking about professional life, providing peer support, and we're really super open to any ideas that members have about how we can support each other. So as part of that, we are running lots of events upcoming, lots of webinars like this one on lots of different subjects. And the aim with our webinars, which I hope you will see today, is that we're approaching it from our point of view as people working in industry. It's not a sales pitch. We're going to ask all the questions that we want to ask, and we're going to just get the answers. We just want the information. So upcoming, for example, we have obviously today. And then coming up, we have a rant all about the budget, which of course we don't know what's in the budget, but we know we're going to want to rant about it. We have upcoming our third software speed dating to have a look through the different MTD options that are out there. We also have things like a Canva tutorial and a content creation tutorial. And from February, we have a very special 6-month course launching for MTD readiness, which is called MTD Together. Come and join us together in our journey with MTD. And all of these are included in our very reasonable membership costs. I won't go into that now. What we will do is we are going to share the recording of this webinar with everybody that's signed up. And as part of that, I will include a link to our website and a very special discount code where you can see our prices, etc., for joining and becoming a member of Accountants Therapy. So that's us. As Tom said, please use the Q&A box for any questions. Let's hand over to Jacques and he will talk us through ACSP.
Thank you very much, Robin. I would just also like to say thank you for allowing us kind of into the community at Accountants Therapy. It's amazing how much work you guys are putting into that, and we can see the benefits there. And it's just kind of, it's nice to be able to add some value where it makes sense to do so. And yeah, thank you for inviting me to the webinar today. I am going to try and keep this fairly brief. There's a lot happening in the space at the moment, but there's some key questions that we're being asked time and time again. I'm going to try and kind of focus on that. There'll be time at the end to ask more questions. I would also like to say, Tom liked to refer to me as the expert, but I'm not sure anybody is really an expert in this space just at the moment. There's some things which are being thrown our way all the time, new things. So there may well be others on this call who knows more about certain things than I do, but I try to keep up to date, and we obviously like to keep our product aligned with what the guidance is saying. So yeah, bear with me as I kind of go through a few slides. Hopefully that's going to answer most of the questions. Please do drop your questions into the Q&A. I think Tom and Robin will try to help kind of field some of them and maybe pass some of them my way as if it's applicable. But hopefully I can then get through that and leave enough time at the end for some more questions to go through. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Hopefully that will come up for you. And just briefly go through the agenda. The previous webinars that I did around this topic has been very much around the act of ID verification itself. We're not going to spend as much time on that today. I'm definitely going to kind of point you in the direction of how you can verify identities. But this is going to be more about the process of who needs to be verified when, why you need to be registered as an ACSP. We are then going to cover a couple of things around ID verification. We've had some communication with Companies House just to clarify a few things, which we do get a lot of questions on. So I'll just like to cover that and just kind of, put across what we now know, which we kind of didn't know even a few weeks ago. So I'm going to start off with the key dates. So we started off with ACSPs being able to register in March of this year. Then people were able to start verifying their identities since April. According to Companies House, more than 1 million people have now done that in terms of actually verifying their identity with Companies House or through ACSPs. But yesterday was the kind of key date when these verified identities came into play. So now it is mandatory to actually use these identities when filing corporation statements, incorporating companies, and so on. And we're going to go into more detail as to what that means at the moment. But also another date is coming up. So that is spring 2026, or the exact date has not been released yet, but currently you can still file with Companies House on behalf of your customers without being an ACSP. But at some point you will need to be registered as an ACSP to do that as well. So currently, the reason to verify or register as an ACSP, really the main reason to do that is if you are going to verify the identities of your customers on behalf of them to Companies House. I think we've seen early on in the process, a lot of people were saying, well, we're not going to provide that service. We're going to get them to go directly to Companies House and do it there and then send us the code. I think more and more we've seen some issues with people trying to do that with Companies House. And I think more people have over time decided to register as an ACSP as they kind of realized that their customers could really do with some help in getting across that line and to unblock themselves from being able to ultimately file for their customers. In spring 2026, so that is that date I just mentioned, you're going to have to register as an ACSP anyway. So kind of our advice is to register as an ACSP early. The other thing we've realized is that in itself can be quite a complicated process. What happens is Companies House tries to match your registration with your AML supervisory body. and then approve you as an ACSP once you've verified your identity. But in quite a number of cases, we've seen that that process, there's a mismatch, or they can't find you, or your record with your supervisory body doesn't match the one at Companies House. And that can take some time to resolve. So generally, our guidance, if you plan to file on behalf of your customers, get registered as an ACSP. Doesn't mean you have to verify identities on behalf of them, but it can help you kind of deal with whatever comes your way without then getting into kind of a different issues with Companies House and that matching of records. So let's crack on then with who needs to verify their identity. We have there's confusion as to kind of who needs to verify to begin with. This is just straight from Companies House guidance. So basically, the key ones are directors, people with significant control, but also people equivalent to directors. So that is members, general partners, managing officers, and so on. It is also people who files for a company. So, for example, a company secretary. Don't ask me when and how a company secretary needs to verify their identity or tell Companies House about it. That I'm not sure about. What we are sure about at the moment are directors and PSCs. But those are kind of the scope of what's falling inside of who currently needs to verify. You can also see a list on the right-hand side of people who's not currently verified or needs to verify. So I've seen in Accountants Therapy actually some questions about PSCs who are also corporates. They are not falling within that scope at the moment, but they will do in the future. Again, we have no idea how that will work yet. But just so you kind of know which ones are currently falling outside of it. And then the question we get asked an awful lot is, how do I need to verify identities of people every year, or is this a one-time process? Basically, the act of verifying somebody's identity or somebody obtaining what's called this personal code only happens once, and you would only need to do that if Companies House tells you that you need to do so. So that's the one bright spark here, is or silver lining, is at least it's something that happens once and not every year. So when does it need to happen? So this is where people get, well, it's a bit confusing as to why this works in the way that it does, but this is basically how the system works. So directors will need to verify their identity by the confirmation statement due date. We'll go into just exactly how that happens, all the kind of steps involved in actually completing the verification, because that in itself is a two-step process. But basically, telling Companies House about the identity of a director or linking those records together will need to happen as part of the confirmation statement. It's possible to do your confirmation statement early still, and at that point you will need to have that identity verified. It will also be if you incorporate a new company, or if you're incorporating or appointing a new director. Then we get into the PSCs, who have a little bit of a more complicated setup. It depends whether that PSC is also a director of the same company. So if the director is, or the PSC is also a director of the same company, it needs to be done within a 14-day window period. So that is basically between the confirmation statement date, or the day just after the confirmation statement date, and the date that confirmation statement is due. I'll show you an example of myself and exactly how that translates into dates. As far as I know, this window won't change. So if you file a confirmation statement early, that doesn't change the window as to which the PSC needs to verify their identity. So that window is essentially now set, and the PSC needs to verify their identity in that period. Then you have a PSC who is not also a director. In that case, it's still a 14-day period, but that will be the first 14 days of their birth month that they need to file it. And then again, if a PSC is appointed after the 18th of November, the 14-day window will basically open at the point of appointment. So they will need to verify their identity within 14 days following their appointment as a PSC. Now, something to complicate this is we all know Companies House have fairly shocking records at the moment. So what happens is that Companies House may have a record at the moment where let's say John Doe is registered as or listed as a PSC. John Doe is also listed as a director, but in the background, Companies House hasn't actually figured out that those two are the same people. So it could be that there's some inconsistencies around these dates. The way to really check is to visit Companies House, and the window on which that PSC will have to file their identity is listed at the moment on Companies House. Just to clarify the process, we kind of talk about you need to verify your identity with Companies House, and you need to do it in these dates. But actually, it's a two-step process, the whole identity verification process, or telling Companies House about the identity of a director. The two steps basically consist of obtaining a personal code. So anybody can do this, whether you're a director or not. You can go and you can sign up to a gov.uk one login account, and you can choose to verify your identity. You go through a process where you scan your passport, you get your face scanned, they do a matching, and you get basically given a personal code. Obviously, you can also do that through an ACSP, which is why we're all here. But basically, this personal code is generated. And like I showed you on the dates, the kind of key dates right at the beginning, this process was already possible since the 8th of April, and 1 million people have got this personal code. But this is simply the act of verifying a person's identity. At this point, Companies House have got no idea that that identity belongs to a director's record within the register. So the second part of the process, and this is what those dates that we've just gone through, or that filing window relates to, that is actually the process of telling Companies House that a personal code belongs to a particular director or PSC. So what a lot of our customers have been doing, and a lot of ACSPs have been doing, is to try and gather as many of these personal codes as quickly as they can outside of those filing windows, because you can do that in preparation of meeting those filing windows. And by the time you're filing the confirmation statement, you've got those personal codes, and you're just telling Companies House which director matches to which personal code. So hopefully that's clear. But to make it hopefully a little bit clearer, this is basically my record. I have gone to Companies House. I have generated my own personal code. Please don't share these personal codes with everybody else. They are specific to the person who they've been generated to, and they need to be kept private and secure, just as any other personal information that you hold of your customers or that you hold of yourself. This does not mean, however, that I have been registered as being verified as a director or a PSC. So to demonstrate that, you can see here, Xama Technologies, our confirmation statement is due by the 22nd of June, with the statement date being the 8th of June. So if I look now at my director record at Companies House, I can see I've got a new little section here which says my identity verification due date is the 22nd of June. And on the PSC side, because they have been able to say that I am also a director and a PSC of the same company, you can see my identity verification is due in this 14-day window. So I can only start verifying, or I can only submit this from the 9th until the 22nd. And then once I've gone through this process, both as my CSO1 has been filed and I've verified my ID as a PSC, this is somebody else's record, but this is typically what that PSC record would look like. So this is also a good example of if you're acting as an ACSP, you will be listed as the verifying party within Companies House as well. So you can see here, Tide Bank offers this service as an ACSP. So they have verified this person and they have also submitted the confirmation statement and the PSC submission as well. So this is hopefully by the end of this 12-month period, everybody should be having that tick box of a verification requirements being completed. Okay, hopefully that's clear. Well, as clear as it could be, at least. Right, so then just to kind of go through the mechanics of those two steps, the one thing that we act as, obviously, is an identity verification technology provider. So we get a lot of questions around how that gets done and the process around that. So I'm just going to go through that pretty quickly. I've mentioned the personal number, and there's basically two ways that can be generated. However, we can't generate the code. We get that asked quite often. It's like, I don't want to deal with Companies House. Can you just generate the code for us? That can't happen. There is no way for us to do that on behalf of Companies House. So the only way you can do that is to submit an identity at Companies House through your ACSP portal once you've registered as an ACSP. Our role is simply to help you verify the identity so that you can do that according to the Companies House guidance. They can also do it straight with Companies House. There's lots of guidance around how that can be done, but exactly how easy that is for customers to navigate has been variable, I'd say. But anyway, that's the personal code. So two ways to do it. You do it directly with Companies House. This is just a bit of guidance on how you might do that. You send your customer really clear instructions of how they can create a gov.uk one login account. You'll then get, your customer will then have the opportunity to verify their identity with Companies House. They'll do so by downloading an app from that Companies House direct them to download. They'll go through the process. If they're successful with that verification process, they'll get issued a personal number, which they then need to send to you, and you can then save that number for safekeeping. And that's the number that you'll need to use when you're filing a confirmation statement or verifying the PSC. There are also other options. So if they can't get through the app, they can go to the post office. There's a couple of other options that they can go through, which aren't great from a customer's perspective, verifying at the post office, or the other option revolves around answering knowledge-based questions, which is them being asked essentially lots of personal questions, which if they answer it correctly, they can verify their identity in that way as well. The other option, which we see more and more people helping their customers with, is to act as an ACSP. Now, the process is not dramatically different to to what it is if you're sending your customer to company's house. You're just in more control of this process, and you're able to support your customer through it much better. So you send your request to the customer. If you're using IDVT technology, which most people would do, it basically asks them again to kind of download an app or submit their identity documents in a different way. But ultimately, to use IDVT technology, typically that means that they have to download an app, much like they would do for company's house verification as well. They will then again submit their ID, do the liveness checking, the biometric checks, scan an electronic chip if that's required. If that passes through okay, then you can submit the ID to company's house through the ACSP portal. You don't get a personal number. That personal number is emailed to the customer, and the customer then has to email you or forward that email or personal number to you so that you can save that until you need it to do the filing. So not dramatically different, but what we see is people can be supported through it a little bit better in this way. There's two different options. What I've just kind of talked about is more option one, where you use IDVT technology. There's also an option two available. We like to support both options as Xama. The one being the IDVT technology, which is probably a bit more straightforward in terms of sending a request, getting a result back, and then being able to use that to file the ID. But in some cases, option one is not possible, and option two really provides more flexibility, but it does require you to be trained to a certain level in order to verify somebody's identity. I've spent a few webinars talking a lot about the differences between these two options and what might be right for different people, and we provide a lot of guidance around it, but I didn't want to spend too much time on that. So what I do want to just clarify, or actually I've got a little demo here for those who's not familiar with IDVT technology, just to kind of give you an idea about what it looks like. That might be helpful. So this is just when somebody receives a message or an email, they go and they download the app. The app will take them through a process by which they can select which document they want to use. They'll take a picture of that document. That's then verified alongside a picture of their face. What happens with the liveness check? So this is basically the upload of the document. Sorry, if the document is seen to have an electronic chip in it, it will also ask for that to be scanned. And then it moves on to the liveness check. So this is where somebody's face is matched to the document. But what actually happens in the background is multiple images are taken. So it's actually a liveness check, or what they call an enhanced liveness check. It's almost a small video that's matched to the document, and then the whole package is essentially verified, and you get a result at the back of that. So that's typically, if you're choosing to use IDVT technology, that's kind of the process that you're going to put your customers through in order to get that identity verified. We've had, this is just to cover off some questions. This is getting a little bit more technical in terms of the ID verification process, but I just wanted to share this because we've been struggling with the guidance around ID verification. A lot of our customers have been struggling with the guidance around ID verification because there's a few contradictions in there, and it's quite difficult to understand some of the terminology used and how that actually matches to some of the guidance which are then provided. And a lot of that was around cryptographic features. Cryptographic features can mean a few different things, but in most cases it points towards the electronic chips that's within documents. And that's kind of how we felt we needed to interpret that from the start. But then that made it very hard to interpret some of the other pieces of the guidance that Companies House put out there. So just a couple of those challenges that we had was that in step 2 of the guidance, where they basically listed the types of documents and indicates that if you're using IDV, if you're using option 1, you need to use IDVT technology, which can verify cryptographic features. But then the documents that were listed, many of them UK driving licenses, machine readable passports that wasn't biometric. So there was lots of documents that didn't have essentially those specific cryptographic features embedded in them. So there was like a bit of a mismatch between saying which IDVT technology you need to use, but then listing lots of documents that doesn't match to that IDVT technology. So created a lot of confusion for us and also for our users. Step 3 of the guidance talks about how you validate a document, and they didn't actually give any indication of how IDVT technology would be used to validate the document. So other than saying the IDVT technology needed to be able to verify cryptographic features, they didn't then go on to give any advice about how IDVT technology should be used to validate the documents. And then step 4, they were more clear about having to use cryptographic feature validation, but it related more. Step 4 is about checking that the identity is real and that the person providing it matches to them. So that's typically done through IDVT technology in terms of biometric checks, enhanced liveness checking, and so on. And the guidance from Companies House didn't at all provide clarity around what you needed to do with IDVT technology if cryptographic features weren't validated. And of course, being so many documents that didn't have it in, that kind of created confusion in its own right. So we've been asking Companies House for some clarity around this stuff for quite some time. And they did come back with some really useful kind of tips, which helps us to kind of clarify our guidance and point people in the right direction. So basically comes down to their definition of cryptographic features, which if you take that guidance from them, which basically says that cryptographic features include many different parts of the document and aren't exclusive to the biometric chip, everything starts to make a lot more sense because there is a lot of security features and some of them can be referred to as cryptographic features, just not generally done so, that can be verified and are verified as part of what IDVT technology does. But ultimately, what they keep falling back to, and this is the important part, is that you as the ACSP needs to be confident that whatever you're using as IDVT technology is verifying an identity to a high standard. And so that is why we try to make sure that we provide the guidance to our users to be confident that what we're doing and the verification technology we provide takes care of all those steps from Companies House. And we're coming up to time, but this is just kind of like all the different types of checks that's being carried out. So the electronic chip, if it's there, it will be scanned, but if it's not, then there is also a lot of other things that's being done. So template matching, digital tampering, AI and spoofing checks, printing techniques, and then the enhanced liveness check, which I showed in that little demo as well. Lots of different things. And it's about matching enough things together that can be trusted in order to establish a high level of confidence in an identity. And if you want to know more about how we do that and how to kind of use the verification technology from Xama and how that matches to the standard itself, if you are a Xama user, then you would have probably seen by now we've got a little banner at the top of the application. It points to some guidance. It gives you guidance as to which level of verification matches best to the Companies House standard. And then if you read through that guidance, you'll also see a step-by-step guide where we basically go through each step of the guidance and explain to you how what you're doing is matching to the standard of Companies House. So it's building that confidence for each ACSP that they know, how they're meeting the standard. So whether you're using Xama or whether you're using a different tool, I would just encourage you to kind of find out more about how that matches to the standard. Ultimately, it's the ACSP's responsibility to be confident in that identity and the tools that they're using. And yeah, I've gone through that, hopefully in good time, which leaves us for some questions. I hope it at least answered some of the main questions that comes up, but I'm 100% sure there's loads of other questions out there as well.
Well, first off, thank you so much for that. I took a lot out of that myself. And like Mike has just put, I'm glad we've got Xama in our corner. I'm a Xama user. I can say personally, I absolutely love the software. I've got completely technology phobic clients that still manage to verify their ID through the Xama process. So it is a fantastic bit of kit. And I think that we've got a lot of questions, 30 questions lined up, and I'm hopefully going to be able to whiz through them with Robin now. But it's quite good, actually, the questions that have come up. They are very specific, and there's quite a few recurring ones. So I think we'll just get straight into it if you're ready to go.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we'll start off with the very first question that came in. This is from Mark. I'm trying to register as someone who works overseas as an ACSP, but I'm being told that under MLR regulations, one has to have a place of business in the UK. I've asked for a definition of that from Companies House, but not received any reply. Any thoughts on this, please?
Hang on, I'm just so who works overseas as an ACSP?
So I think the question is really, what is
Can
the
an ACSP?
definition
Yeah,
of
can
a place
Yeah.
of business in the UK to register as an ACSP?
gosh, I'm not sure about that one. First question, and I've been
That's a
caught
very
out.
niche one, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if Companies House have actually considered that answer themselves. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean
if you're the person that raised that question, you're going to have to go straight to Companies House, I think, on that.
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the regulations here we're talking about is not money laundering regulations. It's the ECTA law that's been come into play. So I'd be surprised if it relates to the money laundering regulations itself. I've not. I think as long as you can go through the Companies House ACSP registration process at Companies House, then I would imagine that would be okay. But and obviously you need to be maybe the problem is being supervised by an AML regulatory body, because that is really the requirement, that you must be supervised by one of the recognized AML regulatory bodies in order to register as an ACSP. So if that's a problem, if you haven't got a business within the UK, then I imagine you can't act as an ACSP in that situation. So that might be where that whole money laundering angle comes in, because you to act as or to register as an ACSP, you have to be supervised by one of the UK supervisory bodies, because Companies House will have to match your supervision number to what they kind of have with them, and they just work with the UK based supervisory body. So maybe that's where that question comes from.
Perhaps, so Mark asked that question, Mark, perhaps you can navigate yourself to corporate therapy, as I know you're in therapy already. So keep us updated. Let us know whether you think what Jacques has said is correct. And if you get any more answers from Companies House, keep us in the loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck.
Next question.
So next up, another international question. So international directors who do not have a chip on their passport Could online verification without an NFC scan on the chip still fall under option one? And would it be considered as verifying the cryptographic features?
Well, that is exactly what was so difficult for us to answer until more recently, because international passports are listed as a valid passport under option one. It's basically a machine readable passport, but not biometric. But it's not possible to verify the electronic chip. But because of the expansion essentially of the definition of cryptographic features, those other security features are being validated by IDVT technology. And so our assumption has to be that that is a valid verification under option one in there. So that's currently our take on it, where those chips are not present or the user have difficulty to read them. There's loads and loads of reasons why we've seen that happening, whether that is just some security features enabled on the phone, or the phone might be controlled by it's a work phone, it's not a personal phone, or just simply incapable, like the cryptographic features itself. There's various different types of cryptography used within these electronic chips. So you might find that a phone can scan one, but not another. So there's various reasons why that might not be possible. But then there's loads of other cryptographic features which can be verified, which are other security features that's within a document. And IDVT technology will only provide a pass result if it can find a significant number of things that it is happy with, and nothing that it is unhappy with, kind of thing, right? So
It sounds like an absolute minefield for anyone that is not straightforward born in Britain with a passport or a driving license. It really does. So
yeah, I mean
if you are verifying ID, good luck.
the other thing that came up there quite often when people were verifying is, like, it's really hard in many cases to tell which documents actually has an electronic chip in it or not. Like, some documents will have the sign within the photo page, but we were verifying documents from various different countries, and it's not just different countries, it's also the different period in which these documents are being issued. And that will all kind of be different in terms of having electronic chips within them or not. And it's not always evident. So people were like, okay, I've got a document here from India, which was issued in 2019. Does that actually have an electronic chip in it or not? It is really not feasible for everybody to know that kind of information. And even the Prado website won't actually list that information. So it was a tricky one to navigate.
Thank you. And we've hopefully got some quick fire ones now. So if I'm a bookkeeper supervised for AML with HMRC, do I need to register as an ACSP? And I think that's more the question of if I'm not submitting accounts or confirmation statements or doing anything in the corporate world, do I need to register as an ACSP?
Yes, if you want to verify somebody's identity on behalf of them at Companies House, then yes, you have to be now. If you file on behalf of the customer, you will be by spring next year.
Yeah. I think essentially, if you're not doing anything on Companies House and you've got no intentions of
Then you
verifying
don't
ID,
need.
you
Yeah.
don't need to register an ACSP.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, next one. Is the Companies House filing just for confirmation statements, or will an ACSP also be needed to register to submit accounts?
In spring, yes. At the moment, you don't need to be an ACSP to file a confirmation statement either. But in the spring, you will be registered as an ACSP to do that. So you can currently, without being an ACSP, you can still file a confirmation statement, but you will need to provide those personal codes as part of that filing. In the future, you will actually need to be registered as an ACSP to do the filing itself. So our guidance is probably become an ACSP now,
Mm.
to be ready for whenever that happens.
So that actually triggered something in my thought process this morning. I remember a while ago when I was setting my practice up, I needed to register with Companies House to get a presenter ID so that I could file accounts through accounting software. Has there been any talk anywhere about whether the presenter ID is going to disappear, or are we going to have to link that with our ACSP? Has there been any talk on the presenter ID front?
I don't know. Not,
Yeah, that'll be. I reckon that will be a March. Suddenly, somebody at Company's House would go, "Oh, hang on a minute, we might need to have a think about this." So I
no.
might go to my software provider for my end of year, which is TaxCalc, and I'll see if they've got an answer on that one, because I think again that's a spring 26 problem. So I don't think anyone's really worrying about that at the moment.
Yeah.
If anybody does know the answer to that, please get in touch with me. I'd love to know. So another one, can a PSC who is not a director apply for a code early? And if so, is the job done, or is there a further process that they need to go through?
Yeah, I think I answered that as part of this question might have come in before I answered that. But yeah, they can get the code early, but they have to then submit that code within that filing window,
Mm,
that's been provided to them. Yeah.
brilliant. Okay, next one up is, how do you think Companies House will cope with different spelling of the same name? And I'll add to that, what would you suggest people should do if they notice that directors have got the same person, but their names are spelt differently?
Yeah, I mean it goes further than that even because I think as you provide the name with as part of the confirmation statement, some directors might be want to be recognized against a company with a completely different name to what they have actually verified their identity as, and that Companies House will actually allow that. We've done some work on Companies House data before where we were kind of analyzing this whole idea about the same person being a director on different companies, but Companies House have got no kind of link between them. They appear to be different people on Companies House. So what's going to be really interesting will be to keep on analyzing how Companies House manage that and whether they can actually start linking these director records that you can see publicly together based on the underlying personal codes that's been attached to them. So I'm hoping you might still see, I imagine, some differences in spelling or different names assigned to a director, but I think the intention is that the underlying kind of identity of those people becomes linked together.
I mean, it's about time we had some update, really, because when you take on a client who's perhaps in the later stages of their business career and you look at the list of companies that are associated with them and their name is never spelt the same and they've got married two or three times and it's all
Yeah.
changed. So yeah, I think it was well needed. Okay, got a question from Donna, but I'm not really sure this is the question that you can answer. It's about, is it a risky strategy to verify anyone that is not already a client? I would say you could need to go to your governing body on that
I
and have a
well,
chat with them.
yeah, I mean, I've got an opinion on it, but it's an opinion. I think Donna actually saw this asked on socials as well. I think the thing here, it kind of goes back to AML and know your customer. Is like, why do you know why this person is coming to you for you to verify their identity? Does it make sense, or is there anything suspicious about them coming to you specifically to do it? I would just kind of dig into that a little bit and do some know your customer, which you potentially, I mean, I guess ID verification is not a defined service under anti-money laundering regulations. But I would kind of go through the same process of doing a client risk assessment, even if it's a shorter one, just to understand if there is any risks of doing so. Because if you think about it, people who can't register with or can't get through the Companies House process, if they are a malicious actor, they may approach ACSPs in order to do it on their behalf, which is a much more risky situation than if somebody has been a client of yours for some time and you know them well. So that's basically how I would approach that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it on the face of it, but don't just do it because it's an it's some easy money coming in. You want to do it properly, and do that bit of KYC.
That's a great answer. And it's nice to have a webinar with someone who's prepared to actually answer some of the difficult questions. So thank you for that. That's really good. Oh, blimey. Every time I clear 3 questions, 5 more appear. So
I
we're going to
know.
keep going until you're exhausted with it. So next up, does it matter if all directors and PSCs of a company have already verified? We've had many clients do this already and log their codes in our informed direct account, but now I'm doubting whether that was the correct thing to do after seeing your slide on the window.
It's fine, Andrea. It's that was basically getting the personal code. So that's the step two. That's step one of the two-step process. So you've done absolutely the right thing. Get as many of those personal codes in. You can then use them as that window opens. If you're waiting for the window to open before you start the process, then you essentially have to ask the person to verify their identity, send you the personal code, and file that code. So if they're not then responding in good time, you may well not be able to file on time. So getting the personal code, get that done as quickly as possible. And then you've got everything ready to go when the filing happens. So hopefully that's
Yeah. And
clear.
on that topic, Laura has just put a comment in. Are you able to just quickly bring up your slides again and show everyone the slide about when we need to enter the codes? Because I think it's really important to just go back on that now about when the codes go in for confirmation statements, when they need to go in for PSCs. Because at the moment, you know, I don't envy you for being an IDV company. It feels like you've been given virtually no information and you're piecing it together as we are.
Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff kind of came out yesterday. So I think, and yeah, I mean, something that we're trying to do with some, well, not to promise this to the Xama users out there, but we've got a really good integration with Companies House. So we actually maintain a kind of real-time database of Companies House data, and that data now includes or is starting to include the information about these windows. So we hope we can do something around our Companies House monitoring, which would allow us to provide monitoring notifications when these windows open and close. But I've not even talked that through with my team yet. So that is very much something that I'm hoping we can do. We'll certainly look at certain things we can do to make things easier. But yeah, it's kind of a
Is there
tricky
any
situation. But I mean, I'm wondering how strict Companies House are going to be on this. There's going to be so many people struggling with it that I think there will hopefully be some leeway from Companies House on this to some extent. But yeah, that's what we've got at the moment.
And do you have guidance on how we submit that code for the PSC? Is it going to be logging into web filing and we've got to update the PSC code during that 2 week window? Because it's obviously not part of the confirmation statement process. So is it a
Yeah, so I
separate?
got an email from Companies House which basically directs me as a PSC to a service. I actually tried to do that a little bit earlier today, and I got to a page where it says I can't file my PSC record yet. It will open on the 9th. The guidance also says that people who file on behalf of the PSC would be able to do that as well. But this is probably where you guys will know better than I do because I don't do any filings. So you're going to know this before I do exactly how this works. But I imagine that would be something you can do if you're filing on behalf of your customer.
And I know from speaking to Robin, when you update your PSC register, the code is already being requested at that point.
Yeah.
So, although she is not a massive fan of Companies House as a tax expert, I think Robin is probably the first person here to have updated a PSC register.
The only thing I've ever done on Company's House. There you go.
Good.
Congratulations. So, yeah, hopefully that's answered your question, Michael. And, this screen here is so important because for me, I know as software companies, you're probably still working out at what point you're going to need to say to people, we'll be integrating a reminder service. Our Company's House going to do it? Is it going to be one of those where you invest, thousands of pounds and time and energy into coming up with a system, which in a month's time, Companies House goes, we've identified an issue. Actually, we're going to scrap waiting for this 2 week window, and you can enter at any time.
I would also strongly recommend like reaching out to your company secretarial software companies if you're using some, because some of this stuff is more in their domain because they're facilitating the filing process with Companies House. We're not a company secretarial software company. We're IDVT and AML, so we don't really cross over into that space, and we're not aiming to be experts in that. But obviously, we've had some crossover and questions about how the two things link together. So I can get some way towards helping people there in terms of just reading what the Companies House guidance is, but we don't go into the detail of how we facilitate the filing from our side. That reach out to the your company secretarial providers or Companies House directly. They are actually very good at responding to emails. If you send them an email to inquiries@Companies House, they're not bad at actually responding within 5 days of receiving a query. So if there's an edge case that you can't find an answer to, that is still probably the best way to go about it.
I actually had a reply from them on LinkedIn yesterday, and they answered my simple question, and then I got a bit more complicated, and it went silent. So I think I'll have to email them on that one.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple more minutes left. There's still 20 questions. Are you happy to do a few more?
I'm happy to keep going until,
Fantastic.
obviously people will drop off as they need to get
Yeah.
elsewhere, but I'm happy to keep going. And I guess it'll be part of the recording for those who maybe need to
Definitely.
leave but has asked a question. So
Yeah. So another one here, somebody's done their ID verification, but the personal code wasn't released by the system. Spent hours trying to sort it with Companies House on the phone. It still isn't sorted. Have you got any suggestions other than what they've already done?
Sam, I'm sorry, I don't really know. I have heard some people. I'm not sure whether this is obviously not the intended way to do it, but I've heard of some people who's had a personal code issued by Companies House, and then an ACSP also submitted that same identity to Companies House, and Companies House issued another code for that same person. So that person ended up with more than one code. So I don't know if that's maybe a one way to get an ACSP to submit an identity and then for Companies House to issue a new code, which presumably would also work. Whether that kind of invalidates the previous code or whether they've got some sort of facility for people to have multiple codes, we just don't know. But the intention is for everyone to have one code, but I don't know, maybe that's a workaround for that case.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a good suggestion, that, because I think I know probably two or three people who I sent it in the email 5 times, make a note of it, take a photo of it, send me an email, print PDF, like do all of these things, and I still got a phone call to say, I'm really sorry, I closed the browser down before I saved the code, and then it's another 15 minutes talking them through accessing it. So
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you for that. Next up, we've got, if we as a firm are advised of a director or PSC by them, does that enable us to file a CSO1 on behalf of the company without any further drama? I'm not sure what you mean by drama on that one, so open to interpretation on that, Jack.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure I understand. If we are advised of a director or PSC by them, if you've got the personal code for the director and the PSC, then you will be able to file the CSO1 without drama. Actually, you can do it with just the directors. The PSC will be a slightly different process.
Yeah, Damien, pop in the chat below what you mean by that. That might be a better one. So we'll skirt over that one. Do you verify ID on Companies House? I've done the verification on Gov1 login, but not sure where to go from here. So I think, Liz, this is about you've verified the ID, got your personal code. It's where you use it on this slide, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So this is basically you'll either do it through the CSO1 or through that service of confirmation of the PSC. But yeah, that has been a lot of confusion is that, oh, I verified my identity. Why do I have to do something else? But it's basically Companies House have got no idea whose identity they verified in relation to the director's records and PSC records that they have. So they've got to basically be told, just linking those two together.
Yeah, definitely. Um, how do we obtain Companies House personal ID codes for directors or PSCs who don't have email addresses?
Um, I think that is like a primary requirement. Somebody has to have a personal email address, whether that is to create a gov.uk login account or to receive a code. I did ask Companies House whether it would be okay for an accountant to use like an alias email instead of that person's personal email in order to get a code. So, for example, the case where a code goes out to the customer and he doesn't send it back, you're basically blocked. If you could kind of just use an alias or something, you could get the personal code quicker. Companies House was pretty clear and quick to respond to say that's not acceptable. The personal code has to go to that person individually. It's their personal information, and they need to choose to share it back to the accountant. I mean, it's pretty easy these days to create like a Google or Gmail email account. So I would probably just help your customer do that in
Yeah,
order
I
to
did
do
that
that.
when we had the SCISS grants during COVID. I had clients that had never needed an email address, so they came into the office, set one up, bang, done. I would
Yeah.
say just get an email address done. Can you only link the director to Companies House at the CSO1 stage? So, Louise, I think we've answered that one on this slide, haven't we?
I think you can file the CSO one early to do it if you wanted to, but yeah, it's done via the CSO. Um,
Yeah. Okay, this is a good one. As far as I know, a code is for the person to identify their identity only and not for his or her position. So, although an individual is a director of multiple companies, should there be only one code from them? I see a couple of clients have got multiple codes using different email IDs. Oh
yeah.
dear.
Well, there you go. So that, I mean, this is kind of that points to the point I was raising earlier with somebody ending up with more than one personal code. That is not the intention at all. The intention is that each person only have one code and then use that same code for all their kind of director and PSC records. Obviously, that's not going to be the reality of it. So it's kind of it remains to be seen if Companies House have got quite a good way to then merge those personal codes together. Obviously, the personal code should be linked to the same identity, so name, date of birth, address, document numbers, although they could use a passport for one, a driving license for another. But hopefully, Companies House have got a pretty good way to merge that information together. But yeah, currently it's pretty easy to end up with more than one code.
Definitely. Should we do a quick poll before people start filtering out? Robin, I think we would like to know, how many of you are going to be verifying client's ID for Companies House because it is a contentious issue in the accountancy industry. It'd be interesting to know what everyone thinks on that, really.
Yep, that's launched and we're quite 50-50 on that. Can you guys see the poll there?
I can
I
see
can
the
see the
poll, but
poll.
not the answer.
Aha, well, let's give a little bit more chance for a few more to answer. We're on about 60 people. If you need help navigating to the poll, go to the bottom of your screen and click polls quizzes. Should be there. Should we end that now? It's been pretty the same all the way through that voting.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you
it,
go.
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty
Perfect.
much. Yeah, I normally have another option in these polls, like, will you verify somebody if they really can't do it themselves? And there's normally some people who would do that, but like only verify only when it needs to do. And then it ends up pretty like a third, a third, a third almost. So it's pretty consistent with what other accountants are also thinking about.
Yeah, got a couple of questions about Xama in particular. So can you share the link for the customer guidance video that shows how to do the verification through Xama? So could you include that in the email at the end? Another question is about Xama partnering with other software companies. So I'm an Engager user. If you're an Engager user, give us a thumbs up. I absolutely love using Xama through that. Is there other integration that Xama has with other technology and software?
Yes, we integrate with systems like Carbon, FYI, socket proposal systems. We have a Zapier integration. We have a Make.com integration. We have an open API. I'm a very firm believer in anti-money laundering not being a process that sits independently outside of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So the only way we kind of really get to where we want to be as a company is to make sure we integrate closely with other software. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you're thinking about other software and what those opportunities are. But it's something we're constantly looking to increase, but also improve the ones that we already have is a big thing on our list for next year. We've been kind of sidetracked this year to a large extent with what we've actually wanted to be doing. So we're kind of glad we can get back to kind of know your customer type stuff, AML stuff, streamlining onboarding processes, that kind of stuff is really what we want to be doing.
And on the Xama topic, someone said they don't want to do the physical checking of ID, so they thought their client could use Xama in order to do the ID verification. Is that correct?
That's correct. You would need to send them a request so that they have they get a link that they then follow, and then they can do the verification of their identity. They can't go to Xama themselves just independently and verify their ID. You need to request that as the accountant,
Okay.
and then you get the result back. It costs about £3.70 to do the kind of company's house level verification. But then something that normally comes up in these conversations is how much to charge your customer. There's a lot else you need to do in terms of getting those personal codes, putting it into company's house. There's obviously some level of responsibility and risk involved. So we see anything from 25 to £100 being charged for that service of verifying an identity. But the cost of the Xama piece of it is fairly small.
And Eleanor, unfortunately, I'm not sure what you're referring to because it was about 20 minutes ago, but you said, do we need a Xama course subscription as I don't have the levels in the guidance?
I know what she's talking about. So when you're selecting, actually, I've got this here. Uh, Sorry, we'll get there in a second. So what she's talking about here is this is kind of the suggested levels that you set up. Obviously, we do verification of identity for AML purposes, for loads of other things. So this is kind of the combination of options that we suggest that you have in order to meet all the steps for Companies House. The bit that is only available on the core subscription, so that's £13 a month, is to collect a home address history, to collect the unique email address. So that's asking somebody if they want the code to be sent to a different email address than what you might have for them. And also the legal names history. Those three stages are available if you subscribe to Core. So you can still verify the identity of that individual. If you've got the free version, you just need to ask those questions to the customer separately to ask them, have you lived in a different address? Do you want the code? Where do you want the code to be sent to? And, have you ever had a different name? If you want to include that within the actual form that goes out to the customers through Xama, you need the core one. But you can still do the actual verification of the identity. So the bit that does the scanning and so on, you can do without core. So that's the kind of, those are the levels that would be hidden. But you can still use it without them. You just need to then ask the customer those questions separately or be able to confirm that information somehow.
And does Xama offer demos if somebody wanted to find out more, or is there some videos they can watch elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think just go to our website, email us at info@xamatech.com. And we can definitely set something up. We have some pre-recorded demos, or we can do live demo, or whatever kind of works the best way. But really, most of our customers will just sign up to Xama and start using it. There's no fee. It's a free product. You sign up. We provide 30 free credits. So you can actually do 4 ID verifications for free on us. And generally, by doing that, you find out whether the product works well for you or not. But we're always there to support or to do demos. But we've kind of set it up so that people can just kind of get cracking with it without.
Oh, brilliant.
It's generally, most of it is a pay-as-you-go kind of system as well.
Yeah, I've really found that quite beneficial. Not having to load up millions of credits and then struggling to get through them all. It's been really helpful for me. I just use them when I need them. So we're going to talk about penalties and fines here because there's about 4 questions all to do with this. So I'll try and get them in one go. What happens if you do not submit that personal codes for the PSC in that 2-week window?
Um, I don't think they've said they could be fined. It's against the law, etc. I don't think they've said what that penalty is yet. I don't
My
know.
understanding is it's unlimited, which means they don't even know yet, isn't it? They've just said it's a criminal offence and they will use every tactic in the book to make sure you get up to date, isn't it?
Yeah, it also, I don't think you will. It says you may have a penalty, something like that. And
Mm,
and the other thing to note is that there is also the option to ask for an extension, which I've
brilliant.
seen.
That sounds a good question.
So that should also be quite helpful, I imagine, in certain circumstances. But in terms of how they police this, I don't quite know yet.
Yeah, I'd love to know if they know yet. Okay, right, we're under 10 now. So, duh, duh, duh. So we've got a question here about does a company's house personal number following an ID verification check remove the need for us to perform AML checks as accountants or bookkeepers?
That's a really good question. I think the answer to that at the moment is no. Um, I'm not going to go into the whole conversation about digital identities and how that works at the moment, but very briefly, I think in the future, um, there's certainly a framework being put into place within the UK, and this has got nothing to do with the mandatory digital ID, which Labour is talking about at the moment. But there's certainly kind of this framework which is set inside the UK, which will enable people to verify their identity with a certain provider once, and then be able to share that identity as and where they need or want to, without kind of going through a full re-verification every time. And the idea behind that framework is that people can just share certain parts of their identity much more securely, as and when it's needed, and only what information is needed. So there's a lot of good stuff going on, which have been completely kind of ruined by the kind of mandatory ID conversation, which everybody now kind of links in with digital identity in general, but there's actually many kind of parts to it. So the short answer to that is no, you would still need to do AML compliance. And one of the slides I kind of took out is if you're kind of doing this stuff for company's house, for verification of ID, take into consideration if that you also need to verify IDs for AML purposes. So
Mm,
that might mean that this stages that we've got on here, you might, if they're also an AML, in scope for AML, you might choose to then include the proof of address document if that's something that you actually like to also collect as part of your AML verification, because then you're doing both at the same time.
brilliant. Um, okay, so we've ticked that one off. Yeah, so what will happen in the long term to companies where verification has not been done, strike off proceedings? I can't imagine it would be anything but that. Companies House has got pretty strict rules for filing accounts and confirmation statements anyway. So I think they've just left the door open for any action they want to take, isn't it?
Yeah.
Da, da, da. Okay, good one about Xama. I use Xama for collecting ID from clients. Where I have collected passport ID months ago and did not use the NFC enabled feature, but the passport passed the checks. Would this meet the option 1? Therefore, I don't need to request ID again using the NFC feature.
If it passed the IDVT checks at the time, I think you just need to be also, you need to be careful about all the other steps. So the one step of the standard is that it needs to have verified the document, but the other steps are also important. So the step that you have verified that the document belongs to that person. So has it carried out the biometric face match as an example? And can you demonstrate the other steps? So, previous legal names, previous addresses, those kind of things. I'm just because the guidance is so kind of not very specific on these things. I'm just kind of I normally don't mind giving my opinion and this kind, but it is my opinion on this particular kind of thing where I think it's fine to do it. But it is my opinion, and you as the ACSP needs to ultimately be comfortable doing that yourself as well. I think if it's a recent, what I would potentially suggest is also running an AML check just to kind of confirm that the kind of identity, the address, date of birth, and so on still matches to what's on the electoral register, credit reference bureau data, things like that. Yeah, it's just a tricky one. I would love to just say yes to all these things, but somewhere I also need to kind of probably be a bit careful in terms of where the guidance isn't super clear on that. But my gut feeling is that it's fine. Gut feeling is also that Companies House is not going to, they've written the guidance in a way where they can't really point to a particular verification and say, oh, this was definitely wrong or this was definitely right, because the guidance is quite gray in areas. So I think the main thing is that you can point to a good process that you followed, which ended up you being very confident in the identity that you submitted. But that includes the identity and also some process that you have that means you're confident the identity belongs to the person who submitted it. So that's the kind of liveness test or having met the person. If you're in doubt, you might want to go back and fall back to option 2 because there's more flexibility around that in terms of how you do it. But then we also offer some training around ID verification and stuff like that, which you might, it's a tricky one. Sorry, Tom, that's not a very good answer, but
No, as an accountant personally, I'd be saying weighing up the risk versus reward. Yes, you might save a bit of time, but actually, this is not something you've introduced. This is something that Companies House has introduced. If you can't push the responsibility onto the client to verify their ID, I wouldn't take any chances with it, really. We don't know what the future's gonna have. So that's a risk versus reward for you. Is it worth doing the additional checks now
yeah.
compared to what will happen if you
Yeah.
haven't ticked the boxes?
It's just a tricky thing. I mean, if you've just onboarded a customer, they went through the whole ID verification process, and that met the Companies House standard essentially. To ask them to do the exact same thing a month later doesn't sound right to me. And and it's inconvenient for you, it's costly inconvenience for the customer. So I can completely see why people want to do that, and I think by and large it's fine to do it. But yeah, I think make sure you've kind of written down your approach that you're taking, and that you're comfortable with that as an ACSP, and can explain why you've done it that way and why you're happy to do it. Yeah, and like for a long time we've said you can do that, but use option 2 So typically rather have two documents rather than the one document. So have a passport, but then also have a proof of address document. That just allows much more flexibility around how you can verify identity. So if you're using historic ones, I would probably kind of lean towards using option two to do it, which just means you need two documents really. And we have some training through the academy, which kind of fulfills that requirement as well.
Yeah. Now we have still got a few more questions coming in, but I think we're going to have to call it a day there because it's been a phenomenally difficult webinar for you, Jack. You've answered so many questions. Cannot thank you enough. It's been incredible. Um,
What
yeah,
we can say is that if there are those questions that are outstanding, get yourself into therapy if you'd like to join us, because Jacques is with us,
Yeah,
and I'm sure he won't mind me saying you can throw those questions at him as part of the group. If you would like some more information there, you can go to mtdtherapy.co.uk, and if you enter Xama 100 as a code, you will get £100 off of yearly membership. Back to you, Tom.
perfect.
Sorry, I just thought I'd go
Yeah.
for that.
No, no,
yeah,
perfect. I would absolutely, yeah, we're not here to sell anything, but I would, or I wouldn't recommend it for people if I didn't think it was definitely worth doing. And yeah, I'm more than happy to. I mean, this is an ever evolving situation, isn't it? So it is difficult to do webinars where we answer all the questions. Sometimes it's just kind of questions as they come up, and it's easier to deal with it that way. And I'm more than happy to help where I can. But I think it's going to be more a situation of the accountants starting to know more about some of this stuff than I do, because you're going to be in the trenches filing and actually doing that kind of admin part of things. So yeah, hopefully, the community can step in and really help with that as well.
Well, you don't do yourself a disservice. It's showing that you've answered 44 of the questions today, and that we just have four left. So well done, and thank you very much, Jack.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
So with that,
right. I think we'll call it a day there, shall we?
yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. Robin, I'll leave it for you to close it down and say the final goodbye.
Great. So yes, thank you everybody for joining us. As I said, you can navigate to mtdtherapy.co.uk if you want some more information on accountants therapy and MTD therapy. And I'll repeat it again in case anybody's missed it, that if you enter code Xama 100 at checkout for annual subscription, then you get £100 off of subscription. And we look forward to welcoming more of you. And we, as always, look forward to seeing everybody that's here with us in therapy already and having a good chat later. Look out for our upcoming webinars, and we'll see you again soon.